You know, when I think of epic fantasies, the only movie that comes to mind is none other than Street Fighter: The Legend of Chun-Li.
Damn it.
The number one epic of all
It's
time.
never going to die.
Little did you know that this is actually based off a chapter in the Bible. That's how fucking amazingly epic it is. Anyway, I'm kidding, of course. It's a piece of junk. But
Not even shit, just junk.
yeah, there is a movie that proves that junk can be epic.
Mm-hmm.
Epically awesome, even. And that movie is one of my favorites. And I know when I introduced you to it, you grew enamored with it as well. I'm interested to see what your reaction is to it now, years and years and years later.
Yeah.
It's been a while since
I didn't remember anything from it, apparently.
That's, of course, just a problem with you, not with the movie. You tend to just forget life.
Yeah, pretty much.
We are talking about Highlander.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Highlander was brought to us by a music video director that had directed one previous movie before it, and it was about a pig.
Oh,
A wild pig, no less.
Babe?
Yeah, Babe. That's who it was. The director, I mean.
Yeah.
Just churning a camera with his hooves, very hard.
Because he has an old-timey camera.
Yeah, man, it shows. You know, this is a movie that could double for a music video at times. It's very infused with the 80's. Sometimes to its benefit and sometimes not. But that doesn't break the movie. This is not a perfect movie at all. I've never thought that. I've never been so nostalgic of it that I thought that it was or made excuses for it. But I've never loved it less for it. I've always loved this movie equally. And having rewatched it like 4 times in the last 2 weeks. That's right, 2 week.
2 week?
I can tell you that love has not changed for it. I love this movie, man. And we're going to talk about that little ditty today. One of your favorites. One of my favorites. If you haven't seen Highlander, what the fuck's wrong with you? But the plot goes a little something like this. It is the time of the gathering when the world's last few immortals will be pulled to New York, apparently, of all places.
To play Magic together.
Yeah, it's very boring. They're just playing cards.
Yeah.
It sucks. No, but it's this basically a showdown of the last remaining immortals in this mythology, and whoever wins this final clash between them becomes basically the god of the world, the king, the man in charge. That's the setup. Mm-hmm. And we get a lot of different things in the midst. A historical tale, a fantasy tale, a murder mystery in the mix, all that junk. So we'll talk about this fucking flick. Let's get to the nitty gritty. What'd you think this go round? It's been a while, like I said. It's been over a decade since we've seen this movie. Yeah. Well over a decade.
I think it's pretty damn good still. I like it.
Non-committal as always.
I enjoy it.
Yeah, man. It's a blast.
It's fun, yeah.
Yeah, it's a blast of a movie. In spite of its flaws, which it does have, and we'll talk about this when we get to the cons. Yeah, man, I love it. Like I said, I've watched this 4 times over the last 2 weeks. 2 of those times with the commentary track, which was one of the better commentary tracks I've heard from Russell Mulcahy, the director. As aforementioned, he was a music video director. That's what he was known for, and it shows aplenty. So we're going to talk about one of the pros that we got to get out of the way first. And that's that because he was a music video director. He had a lot of ties to the music business. Yeah. And one of the things he brought into this movie that sets it apart from a lot of other movies, and in fact brought a lot of attention to this movie, was that a large part of the score and the soundtrack is composed by Queen.
Yeah.
So just get that out there.
Yeah.
It's riddled with queenness.
I'm sure at some point Brian may try to take credit for the whole thing.
Yeah.
But
they punched him in the nuts. Yeah. Nobody cares about Brian May. Come on, let's face it.
Piece of shit, I hate him.
Great guitarist.
Douche guy.
Shut the hell up.
Yeah.
Let Freddie take the spotlight like he always has.
Yeah.
Even now he's dead. He's still in the spotlight. Shut up, Brian May, you ass.
Stop trying to make the movie about you.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But anyway, that is a pro off the go. I mean, we're big Queen fans, you and I. So, I mean, that's just a pro. If you don't like Queen, you may not like this movie. This is a fair one. But I say that because this movie was a failure at the box office. It was a colossal failure, in fact. But now it's one of the biggest cult movies out there with a large fan following. It spawned a shitload of sequels that none of them are really good, and a show that was pretty decent, actually. And that had spin-offs, comic books, etc. It's a big, big thing. I'd venture to say that the only really good anything that came out was this first movie. You know what I'm saying? Again, the show was pretty decent, but really, this is where it's at, folks, for me. Anyway, let's start off with the real pros and cons here. Pro number one for me is that this is... Oh, I'll say it this way. The mythology of the movie is a big pro for me. And they find innovative ways to weave this mythology, whether it be through exposition or through actually showing you parts of that mythology come to life in front of you. Awesome throughout, and of course at its basic foundation, it's a tale of good versus evil. You can't go wrong with a tale like that, and the figure of Connor McLeod, our hero, is a very messianic figure. I mean, these are just like the go-to building blocks of a good story, and if you botch that up, then you're a fool. Thankfully, they don't, and that's one of my favorite things about this movie. That it harkens back to those basic building blocks of a story, and it actually elaborates on them in very creative ways, visually or otherwise. What's your first pro there, champion?
It's
God, man, forget that I ever called you champion.
Horrible.
Anyway,
that part where you called me champion,
it's badass.
Pro. I think stylistically,
yeah,
it's a unique movie. Weird, very odd, but it's kind of what makes it interesting. And
there's a lot of that go. It has a very rich tapestry, like you said, stylistically, and it doesn't. It runs a gamut of stuff, from the lighting to the shots to the camera work, etc.
Yeah.
It runs a broad range, very unique, stand out. I'm with you on that.
And it's kind of like, it's a little hyper, but it's interesting in what it's showing. Like, even if it's kind of showing something that might be kind of boring, they do it in an interesting way. And then, they could show a guy flipping for 85,000 hours, and that was pretty cool.
That's a thing that happened. Yeah. Another thing I gotta praise in this movie, I don't know if you noticed this or it made an impression on you, but I just gotta point out that, and this was uncommon, that's why I'm pointing it out, that the lead female in this movie, our heroine, if you will, and are kind of our in as an audience to the story. She's kind of our in to the audience. She's not your standard damsel in distress. Even when she is a damsel in distress at the end, she's a lot more involved in the story, and that was very unusual back then. It just didn't happen that often. It was still screaming ladies, and unless it was in the horror realm, scream queens have always kind of taken the front seat. But other than that, chicks were still kind of in that damsel in distress place, with a few exceptions. So it was unique to see that while still keeping the idea of this is a person that needs to be saved by our hero, etc. So that was pretty cool, man. I actually enjoyed that particular part. But anyway, hit us with another one of your pros there.
Clancy Brown.
Clancy Brown, boy.
Pretty
really,
great.
If we're going to mention Clancy Brown, we have to mention Sean Connery and Christopher Lambert. Yeah. But we won't until we get to that part. But we won't, because Clancy Brown stands out so much that he kind of has to be mentioned on his own. Yeah, I agree. What is it you like about old Clancy besides the fact that his teeth are hideous?
It's kind of weird because, like, I've even though my first exposure to him was Highlander, I've kind of gotten used to him outside of Highlander. So going back and being like, man, he was pretty freaking menacing in this, and pretty damn cool. I kind of wish he had done a little more of that, of that kind of role,
I mean,
he does.
We have Pet Sematary 2 where he's like, just so insanely over the top that it gives you all the insane Clancy you need for life.
That's a good point.
But yeah, I get you.
But he was pretty damn cool in this. I like him.
I
would hang out. Well, maybe not hang out with him.
Might kill you.
Yeah.
This movie was written by Gregory Wyden, who later went on to write and direct one of my favorite movies from the 90s, coincidentally. That was The Prophecy with old Christopher Walken there as the Archangel Gabriel. One of my favorite movies. We'll discuss that further on in some other video. But he kind of bemoans the idea or the fact that Clancy Brown doesn't get a lot of screen time in this. And I get it. I understand. We all wanted more Clancy. But really, it's not the story of him. He is kind of like this archetypal evil. He's always looming in the background. Yeah. And although in a perfect world, we might have seen more Clancy, and that would have been cool because he's insane in this.
Yeah.
I think this was kind of like the perfect amount of Clancy.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Especially because, like, you see him in the beginning, you kind of get it. And then when he shows up at the end, you're like, yeah, he's back. I mean, he's in there throughout, but...
Now, I'm going to talk in the cons about something that I thought they could have done with Clancy without overexposing him too much. But yeah, I still think this is the adequate amount of Clancy Brown mania to make him menacing enough and entertaining enough, but never robbing him of the seriousness of his role or the kind of like impending doomishness of should he win, the world is fucked.
Yeah.
Because damn, he's insane in this. But I love it.
Also it just goes along with it. His voice is pretty rad in this.
That's a given.
Yeah.
The old Rasparoony, I call him.
Old
Raspy, they call him. Nobody does it.
Yeah. A quick plus. The lozenge business probably had a spike.
Clancy
because of Clancy. He's like, oh man, my throat.
The old Clancer. Yep. Yeah, man. Just to go back to touch upon something you mentioned, the inventiveness of this, specifically the camera work. This movie, I know that Russell Mulcahy, the director, kind of looks not down on it, but he feels that he's evolved from this style of directing, and he has, but that kind of comes at the price of him losing what kind of made him stand out.
Yeah.
And what made him stand out is this type of directing. It was uniquely his. Yes, it's a very 80s style, but it hasn't dated like other 80s movies of its ilk.
Yeah.
It's still,
I think it's
there's a freshness to it.
Yeah, I think because there's enough of like creativeness in there that isn't just like, trying to be cool looking. I mean, it is trying to be cool looking, but it does it in a creative way. So you're just kind of like, oh, that's cool. It's not just like corny looking. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I like how you said like it's not trying to be cool looking, but it does in a way where you're like, that's cool.
Well, yeah, but
let me phrase it this way. Maybe is what you're getting at. He found a way to do it where it was both creative and utilitarian and unique, and ultimately that fed into making this movie look bigger than really it is because its budget was really small compared to what we get on screen. So we get these amazing, cool shots that make you feel like this is awesome, man. It's not even deep. You're just like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Although there are moments that have some depth, of course. And then, there's particular shots in this movie where they just feel like comic book panels. And that's not putting the movie down. That's actually really cool. I mean, to see that come to life then, and it's not even a comic book adaptation. It just had that unique tapestry of all these influences. And I think if he hadn't been a music video director and hadn't had to think on the fly so much like they do on music video sets, that probably wouldn't have come together the way it did.
Yeah, especially how music videos were in the 80s, where it was just kind of like, let's put all these weird
elements into play.
Make things look weird.
That being said, there is a lot of backlighting in this movie, but we're not against that.
But I think like you said, the camera work, there's some shots where it's kind of like, given that it was made back then, I'm still kind of like, man, how did they do that? Like the shot in the wrestling where the camera's just kind of going around and shit.
That's interesting because they used a unique, a system that's not even in use anymore just for that shot.
Yeah. There's several shots where you're just kind of like, how did they even do that? Back then, now it would just be like a drone or something. But...
Or worse, just a CGI effect.
Yeah.
But here they had to think on their feet and they did all this stuff. In a time when there was no cell phones, and the time when there was no big, they didn't even have money for computer imagery, in this. So even though there was back then, it still sucked back then compared to what it is now. But they just did this all, and it has a hands-on feel to everything. Even when things don't work 100%, it still has that hands-on charm that it's almost distinctly very 80s. So that comes through very well. Yeah, that's a good thing you pointed out there. I'll also say that another favorite thing of mine in this movie is it's the way they chose to tell the narrative. Instead of it being very linear in a sense, it kind of intercut between the past and the present.
It's kind of like two movies.
Yeah, really.
What's that? Kind of like three movies, really. But the first bit is like the setup, and then at the end, you're just kind of like, okay, here's what's going on now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I absolutely love that framing device and how it played out throughout. It really serves to keep you interested in the story. And it really helped the modern story because the modern story really is thin. Yeah. You know, there is no mystery. It's played like a mystery, but we, the audience, already know the solution. It's really the way that the solution is presented to us that keeps you engaged. And that comes in the past stuff that sets up the importance of, like you say, later in the movie, it all coalesces together at the end. And it works brilliantly, man. It really works incredibly well to keep you invested, interested, and keep you on going into the final confrontation between these two big archetypes of good and evil. So, yeah, I mean, that really awesome, man. Now, we talked about Clancy Brown, of course, because he had to be on his own. But, yes, Christopher Lambert and Sean Connery deserve, of course, accolades themselves. Sean Connery's just fucking awesome.
He's pretty rad, man.
It's probably my favorite Sean Connery role.
I would want a Sean Connery fig.
Yeah.
Not a Fig Newton, but
just a fig.
Yeah, fig.
Sean Connery plays a Spaniard, nay, Egyptian immortal that is basically kind of like the mentor, if you will, to Christopher Lambert's Connor McLeod, who has just learned that he is immortal. And the scenes they share together are some of my favorite scenes in this movie. Dare I say, probably my favorite scenes in this movie. There's just... It's shocking, really, because he had 1 week to work on this movie. And in 1 week, they achieved the feeling of kinship between them, brotherhood between them.
It's kind of interesting because you do see, since it does start with Connor McLeod in modern day being all cool and shit already, and then it shows you, when he sucked basically back in the day,
right?
And it's like two very different characters. You know what I mean? Like he's more like kid-like back then, and it's just very different, and you kind of see his impact.
Yeah, Sean Connery. You really do.
So that's right, Sean Connery. That's his character.
Yeah, not Ramirez. Yeah, you're absolutely right, man. The despite the limited amount of screen time he had, and apparently time working on the set, comes through great, and the character's just charming, lovable.
Cool guy.
And he is really the vehicle to which we get the bulk of the mythology. So, like I said, there's a lot there in that section with these two characters that I really absolutely love, and hats off to the actors, of course. Now, I have to point out that Christopher Lambert, for somebody that hasn't seen this movie before, and especially nowadays, if they've never even seen it, never touched upon it, maybe even never heard about it, he might be a little off-putting to some people. His delivery is very strange.
A little weird,
and that's because he's a Frenchman, and he had a very little grasp of English at the time. So much so that some of the lines in this were just phonetically fed to him. And it shows. Oddly enough, though, just like Sean Connery, who has a Scottish accent despite playing a Spanish guy that's actually Egyptian, it adds to the mythology of the movie.
It was like Robert Downey Jr.'s character in Tropic Thunder before.
Yeah, really. But the ingenuity of it is that it kind of falls into ingenuity rather than being clever. It just adds to the tapestry of the movie, which is really cool. So awesome on both accounts. Also, I'd like to point out that another pro for me is that there's a section, especially during that moment that these two characters share their history together. Connor McLeod, Christopher Lambert's character, is with someone. And it's kind of a touching relationship, and it makes you feel. This movie makes me feel a lot of the times that I wish that it was longer. Not that it leaves you wanting.
It's pretty long.
It's a pretty long movie. It doesn't leave you like empty, like I didn't get to see all this. No. It's one of those movies, like you said, like Straight Outta Compton was one of those movies where you just kind of wish you saw more. Like, hell yeah, I want to be in this world more.
Yeah.
but not the sequels. Those suck. Unfortunately, the sequels were like, whoop, sneaky.
Yeah.
I'll tell you why, because this is another pro for me about this movie. This movie is
Self-contained.
one and done.
Yeah.
It's self-contained. This is the movie. The way the movie ends, that's it. The goal was achieved. There was no reason to ever make fucking sequels.
You know what the best thing you could say about this movie? The series, really? There can be only one.
Yes. Boom. Right there. Man, that boom, though.
Yeah.
What you got any more pros there, bud?
Yeah, you do get a insane amount of Raiden laughs in this.
Nah. Yeah.
It's pretty great.
If you don't know what the fuck we're talking about, it's because when we first saw Christopher Lambert in Mortal Kombat, we noticed this little laugh, this little jackass laugh of his. He does a lot of that in here, so I guess that's a pro,
including an underwater one.
Yeah, which is creepy sounding.
Yeah, it was pretty horrifying. I'm not gonna lie.
I'm gonna throw another one out there. I love that despite that there being a lot of mythology to the Immortals, it's never explicitly stated their origin. And in fact, Ramirez's character just kind of says it's the way of things. You know, even he doesn't know, as old as he is. Yeah. It's just the way of things, just like nature is this way. I love that, man. I love that. And then they throw in, I love that they throw in elements that suggest that there is something bigger there. Yeah. They just don't know. Awesome. I love that.
I'll throw in some that kind of complements that. I like when you see the other Immortals, where you just kind of get, even though you see them for like a second, you kind of, it feels like they have history together, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Especially the flipping guy at the beginning. Flipping! Why is he flipping?
He flips way too much.
Well, too much flip.
Yeah.
First con, too much flipping. Any more pros before we go to the cons?
It's 80's as shit.
That's
like,
pro?
Like insanely. Yeah, it's a pro. Another pro, insane amount of fog. I guess that goes with the 80's.
Backlighting
okay,
fog.
I'll say a huge pro. Mm-hmm. It gives us that weird ass alternate dimension where Queen is the only thing that plays.
And radios and everywhere.
And the streets are empty except for when there's a lot of hookers around and there's murders going on. This is also the kind of movie where nights are brighter than days because of the backlighting. Yeah. It's just great.
And the neon, don't forget the
neon, of course.
It's 80's as fuck is what
great,
we're getting. Yeah. I mean, I like the only thing missing from this to make it more 80's is burning trash can barrels. Yeah. And some bums. Needed some bums.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, it kind of has a bum guy in it. Yeah. But it's not 80's enough because he's not near a burning barrel of trash.
That's true.
That's the ultimate signature of the 80's movie. Anyway, let's move on to the cons here. Sometimes the good comes with the bad. And I don't mean bad as in horrid. I just mean, sometimes what we like in it can sometimes also be kind of a little bit lame. And so I'll go. My first con is that this movie can be a bit over the top at times. Does that make it bad at any time? Not for me, at all. But I can see this movie not pleasing certain people because of that over the top nature of it. So
there is like you pointed out. There's some scenes that are in there that are like, this did not need to be in there. Mm-hmm. Like the whole gay ass guy duel scene and all that stuff, but. Yeah, I like it.
They're in there.
I can see someone being like, man, that scene though. Yeah. But not me.
Yeah. So, I mean, that could be a con of its own. The extraneous scenes, it has a lot of those. But yeah, to us, it doesn't bother us. It just gives us more Highlander. Yeah. So, ain't gonna bitch about that. Although that scene with the old lady being taken on a joyride by the Kurgan. Many people will say, why is that in there? Do we need that extra shot of her clawing to stay in the car? Yeah, yes,
we do.
We do.
We needed more.
Yeah, more screaming hag at the Kurgan's whim.
Yeah.
Anyway, do you have a
I have a very minor nitpicky one, and I know I'm overlooking an insane amount of stuff, but this kind of slightly bothered me.
Okay.
The Kurgan's bald cap, you can see the edges.
The seams.
I'm like, oh man. Especially because it comes with a scene that's really cool in the church. I really enjoyed that scene. It's like actually kind of creepy feeling, and it's cool. Right. And then the whole time I'm like, man, I got a little corner right here down.
Yeah. The bald cap didn't bother me so much. Kind of the makeup on his neck did a little. but it's a scar, so it's supposed to be different colored.
Yeah.
At the same time, but whatever. Like you said, nitpick.
Yeah.
This is not a nitpick. This always bothered me about this movie. And this particular copy of the Blu-ray, by the way, great picture on this. They really did a good job of doing this 4K scan because it doesn't take away. There's not a lot of DNR, not a lot of digital noise reduction.
Yeah,
so it still looks like
you
film.
Still have the film grain and stuff, except for that really insanely clear
on the battlefield.
Yeah, that was weird.
Oh, I thought
at the end with all the effects and stuff. That was. I mean, it looked cool, but
super clear,
very clear,
insanely clear. But there's a shot at the beginning in the battlefield where he's wounded by the Kurgan.
Oh yeah,
where he's like, it's like out of like the fucking 30s.
Yeah, that was like
somehow
super fuzzy.
But
I thought this was gonna be like one of those director's cuts where like suddenly the quality completely changes.
Yeah.
But no, it was just that one scene. It was weird.
Yeah, it's really good, really surprisingly excellent. Along with that excellent scan comes excellent sound. So this just amplified this problem that I've always had with Highlander, and that's
that
this.
was all set up?
Yes, that's all set up. That was this. The ADR on this can be a little bit grating. You know, if you don't know what the fuck that is, basically looping. That's basically they go back and they reshoot the sound of the dialogue so that becomes more audible.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's there. It's fucking 24/7 in this fucking movie.
I noticed a few times where it was, like, terribly done.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't really bother me too much, but there was a few where it's like, oh, man. There's, like, several scenes where, especially in the beginning, where Connor McCloud is talking and his mouth's not moving at all.
In case you're wondering why he's saying Connor McCloud like a freaking tard, it's because Christopher Lambert says it like a freaking tard. I'm Connor McCloud of the Clan McCloud. Anyway,
yeah, there's scenes where he's like talking, but his mouth's not even moving.
Yeah.
And it's like for quite a while. It's just like, oh man, it could have.
Now that's excusable for Christopher Lambert, who, as aforementioned, didn't really know the language that well. But like I said, it's present through and through the movie. Yeah. It's ADR City in this bitch. But I will say this caveat: I'd rather have ADR straight through than it comes and goes.
True.
Because there's some movies where they just ADR and then they don't and then they do and then the difference in sound quality is so different.
Yeah.
So fuck it, just keep it straight through. That's fine. It's just always been a thing that it's like, yeah, this motherfucker ADR is shit. But anyway, just the thing I have to point out. How about you? Another con you got there?
I honestly can't really think of any.
Well, I got one for you. Some of the action has a very stagey feel to it. But you know what?
I like it.
I like that.
That's the thing. Like anything that I would have to complain, I like it.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. The sword fights are pretty awesome, with the exception of like one of them. They're pretty cool. They are obviously choreographed, and that shows. But it's fine. They look awesome. Nothing is taken away from the movie. But yeah, there's a stagey feel to some things, especially the battle between Kurgan and Ramirez has a very stagey look and feel.
Yeah.
But again, the look part of it adds to this weird tapestry of visual, flavor the movie has.
It was kind of cool, and it was definitely like unique looking.
So there's that. If that's gonna bother you, it may bother you. It doesn't bother us so much. Kind of like that quite a bit. Yeah, some of the extras have kind of some lame acting, little lines that kind of lick, like that guy that throws that one-liner out that sucked. But that's, negligible shit. I will say this, and this is what I kind of mentioned about the Kurgan that I was going to mention here in the cons. I do wish there was maybe not more of the Kurgan, but alternative scenes with the Kurgan to really give you a feeling for the scope of the gathering.
Yeah.
And though we do get a touch of that when he meets, when Connor or the Kurgan meet with other Immortals, it would have been nicer to see the Kurgan in the background take dispatch of other Immortals a lot more.
Yeah.
So that way he's a lot more present in the middle section, yet still not at the forefront, because that would have kept Clancy in his place.
And they try to, they kind of do it, but it could have been done.
It could have been more, a little bit
better.
More. I think it would have added to the flavor.
They do go for that with the whole, investigation or whatever, but I
that's the way they kind of do it, through the investigators going, oh, there's a fucking killer on the loose, which is a cool approach.
And apparently that guy thought he was black.
Yeah.
Like, what the flip?
Yeah, look, when you do a sketch of someone that attacked you, you might want to get the look right. Like,
Just looked like O.J. Simpson.
Yeah, that the police sketch of the Kurgan. He was just a black guy.
Yeah.
To be fair, O.J. Simpson totally did it.
That's a good point.
Just saying. I got one that I know you'll agree on. You just probably don't remember, and that's Connor McLeod's wife in the past.
Oh, yeah.
She grows old with time, obviously, and he does not. And great scene. Awesome scene. The old makeup sucks. It's just her.
I've seen worse, but it was kind of like they didn't go
whole hog
too much, which would have been bad. But then they were kind of, it seemed like they were scared to go too much, so that they just kind of made her a little white. Yeah. And that's it.
That's it. So it's just they could have just swapped her out for an older lady.
Yeah.
Maybe call her mom and have her something.
Yeah.
It's not like the acting had to be great because it could just ADR her voice over the mom's voice.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ADR in this, baby.
It was kind of, and then
we should ADR this fucking
thing.
Thing.
Damn, we should. So that's a lot of work.
Not gonna do it?
Nope.
Anyway, think of anything else before we move on?
No.
I'll say these last two.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that Gregory Wyden talked about on the extras in this, and I kind of agree. The rules are a little hazy about certain things. Visually, especially. There's times when a quickening is when one of the Immortals kills another, or maybe even just is in contact with them. There's an energy about.
Yeah.
When some of the quickenings happen, there's all this energy flowing and bodies floating. And then in other times, nothing happens really other than a light shining and maybe the implication of energy.
And they established that they kind of feel each other. Mm-hmm. But there's that scene where they're walking and Kurgan's like kind of like right behind them and he doesn't feel him.
Now, he does do a quick turnaround afterwards, but you'd think he'd be like immediately
especially with the chick there.
Yes.
Be like, come on, dude, he's like right there.
Also, in hand with the rules thing, the Kurgan's powers are mystifying to me.
Oh, damn it!
They do put out there that he's the most powerful of the Immortals because he's consumed so many souls or energies from killing so many.
Suckles them.
So does he fucking like get special spinning into oblivion? There's this thing where, look, when he has the battle with Ramirez, this entire place crumbles down. This castle crumbles down, and he falls from the stairs, and he's in the midst of the rubble. Connor McLeod's wife is all the way over there across the fucking globe, apparently, and somehow, even though he fell over there and under the rubble, the Kurgan's hand jets out and grabs her throat from right next to her. She didn't see him. Yeah. So does he secretly have a power where he slithers underneath
It happened several times.
Several times he just pops out of fucking nowhere. And you can attribute this to the 80s-ness of the movie, and you'd be right.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it makes you wonder, how the fuck does he just happen to appear out of nowhere?
And then we were kind of just like, I mean, that's got to be... I mean, we're making the slither joke, but it's got to be like it's just 80s. And then at the end, he does like this little little spin into the water and slithers. Well, you don't see the slither, but
the slither is implied. Yeah. They're fighting in like what, like maybe like 2 foot deep of water, so maybe even more, 3 feet, let's say. And he has his sword out and he spins and he slowly descends into the water. Then we cut to Connor McLeod,
he's like right behind him.
feet and feet away, and he just pops up behind him. Did he slither under the water?
Dude, I think the Kurgan slithers.
Is there a slither power?
Yeah.
If there is, we need to know. Now, it is implied that the Immortals are super fast.
Yeah.
But, come on, man.
You do see...
slithering.
You do see Sean Connery.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to say slither.
Yeah.
He slithers, too.
Hashtag immortal slither.
Yeah.
Get over it. But, yeah, man, other than that, I don't have any complaints. And really, these aren't complaints, you know. This is a movie that's imperfect, but I love its flaws.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, so it's just one of those. Maybe it's a bit nostalgic of me, and sue me for that. But there's a reason a lot of people love this movie. They look past those flaws because there's something here, that just attracts you to the movie, and that's why it has a cult following. But anyway, let's give our final thoughts and final score on a scale of 1 to 10. Give it to me.
I think just the fact that it introduced, I don't know if it actually introduced the world to Clancy, but I'm going to assume it did.
If it didn't, now it does.
Yeah. It's a perfect 10 in my book just because of that. Also slithering powers. But in reality, I'll give it I feel like I can't give it past the 7, just because it does have a lot of faults. But I'm gonna go ahead and give it an 8 nonetheless, because it's pretty rad.
It's that type of movie, man. Like I say, you overlook flaws in this movie. It's that cool. Yeah, man, I'm with you, man. I'm gonna give this an 8. It's always been a favorite. I venture to say it'll probably continue to be a favorite. There's just so much here, so much to chew on, so many ways to enjoy this. You can see this movie endless times and just focus on different aspects of it, as apparently proven in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Every time I've watched it, I've never been bored. I never got tired of it. You know,
noticing
slitherings. When I was a kid, and by this I mean a teenager, which is when I pretty much discovered this movie. Dude, I would watch the shit out of this. I ran through 2 tapes. Granted, it was those Republic Pictures tapes were cheap as fuck, but still, I ran through 2 tapes. I remember when the fucking director's cut first came out. I had to go get that. You know, it's just one of those movies that is crucial to me. Despite that, so for that reason, yeah, I have to do the same thing. I feel like it should be a 7, but it's gonna get an 8. Yeah. And really, I kind of want to give it higher, but then I'd be unfair as fuck.
Yeah.
Point is, check out Highlander, boys.
We gotta get like a figure of Connor McLeod, like
of the Clan McLeod.
Yeah, and it has that sound bit and like an 18-inch. It has that sound bit and the. God,
why is that laugh?
It's just becoming a monster now. Dude. He's slithering around making that sound.
Hashtag. He's just a monster now, guys. Who? Nobody. Anyway, tell us what you think about the old Highlander there, and how much part 2 sucks ass.
Yeah, I kind of have to see them now.
Yeah, part 2's terrible, dude. Both cuts. That was a director's cut, and they couldn't salvage that shit.
What about the third one?
The third one's okay if you look at it as just kind of a remake. It's okay, but this one's still better. Way, way better.
All right.
Part 4 was alright, I guess, as a combination of this pseudo mythology and the show's mythology, which also took some massive leaps in logic. So, you know, whatever. It's not a good series, but this movie, part 1 is the one. There can only be one, like you said. And they said 1,000 times in the movie. Anyway, apparently, by the way, before you become the one,
you gotta say.
Yeah.
Because nothing happened until he said it.
Yeah, exactly. Is that one of the rules?
Yeah.
Anyway, tell us what you think about this movie. Hit like, share, subscribe, and those notification buttons because we're up.